So the dust has barely settled on Android 15, which was released not that long ago, but barely less than a year later, we have a smaller but still fairly important Android 16 update, which is stuffed with new functions and features for Google Pixel phones. And if you're wondering what's new, well yeah, let's get into it. Before then though, if you love Android, I think you're in the right place. We love Android from top to bottom and everywhere else in between. So how about hitting that subscribe button to A, be one of my friends, and B, help all of our Pixel and Android videos, get them right into your inbox. Yeah, cheers. I need to get some obvious problems right out of the way early because this is not that huge Material 3 expressive overhaul that you might be thinking of, you might have seen elsewhere online. This is actually the precursor to that update. So if you're expecting extensive functional changes and adjustments, then yeah, sadly, you're going to leave disappointed. None of this is new information either. We've been banging the drum for the past nearly 6-7 months. Google was very clear that Android 16 is coming in two distinct parts. A shorter development cycle for this first slice of the pie means that I think the real filling, the real meat of this is coming in a few months. It also adds a layer of complexity as the latest beta releases, which are available as of this video gone live for Android 16 QPR1, are going to have more new functionality and features. And if you do want to see those, go check out our videos on the channel. We will be diving into that update fully when it's ready, but it will include all of those Material 3 expressive updates and overhauls and upgrades that Google revealed during the Android show. So yeah, if you're disappointed, well yeah, that's probably the reason why. And back to this smaller launch, this video is broken down into UI changes, usability changes, and cosmetic changes, so use the timestamps down below to navigate this video. First up though, we have some live updates for specific applications on your phone. Although not many apps yet support live activities in Android 16, the groundwork has at least been laid so that applications can take advantage of this function. This is basically acting as a timeline or little tracker for specific applications. Think Uber or Maps. When you're navigating, you get a little timeline. You get a notification that tracks the progress, and this can appear on your lock screen as well. It isn't widely available as I noted, but more apps will support this in the coming months, and it looks great so far from what we've seen. It's also now easier than ever before to make changes to your on-device regional preferences like measurement units, including temperature, distance, and even the first day of the week, as I didn't realize that was something that changed from country to country. This is in a better place within the languages section now in Android 16, which makes it easier to make those adjustments as and when you need them. The Recent app menu also now has new options, including a screenshot, select, and close button. When you long press that little app icon towards the top of this section to initiate a little mini menu, the close button just lets you force stop an application and remove it from the Recent app menu. This option mimics the swipe away or swipe up option that you may see when closing applications or you may use for the past few years, but the rest of those are pretty self-explanatory. Select allows you to choose text or images to copy from that application within view, while the screenshot button just takes a quick screenshot of the whole screen app itself. These two options do just basically mimic these floating text controls that you can see above or the nav bar under the floating app preview within the Recent app section. It wouldn't be an Android update without Google at least trying to tweak or change the media player, so yeah, it continues here with darker artwork visible when you have something playing or when something is paused. The controls and buttons do stand out a little bit more against this dimmed backdrop of an album art, video cover, or anything else like that in between. There's no other area adjusted here, but yeah, you can see that it's a lot darker than the previous version in Android 15. One thing I will say about media play changes is they extend beyond that, so when you're playing media in the quick settings panel or on the lock screen, just tapping the location within the top right of that little player of where the audio is currently being pumped out of brings up a familiar pop-up panel for controlling the volume. This though now has sectional headers for speakers and displays, which shows you those that are nearby. The volume slider also has a little dot to indicate the maximum volume level over to the right. This is a slight rejig of the previous version. It's a little bit more organized, but overall, yeah, it's nice to see Google making these minor changes as they do start to add up into something a little bit bigger. So while we've had gesture-based navigation on Android, at least since Android 10, it looks like in Android 16, this is the first to feature a proper demo to help people switch away from the 3-button navigation method outside of that initial setup of your device. It's really easy to find in settings, head to that gesture navigation page, and you can see a demo of this in action, and it shows you just how to use it. I think one of the strangest new toggles is a dedicated app list mini menu that you can access by long pressing any empty space on your home screen. It just opens up the app drawer so that you can access that with a simple swipe up or without using a swipe up in this case. That's it. That's all this does. Really strange inclusion, but it is here in Android 16. Android 16 also features a change on how you can tweak or adjust notifications from the quick settings panel. So when you long press a notification, the turn off notifications option is now broken up into two separate toggles. There's dismiss and turn off. They do the same thing and they work really nicely, but it's separating that up into two options, which makes it a little bit more cohesive and it makes a lot more sense at first glance. There's also a change to the brightness slider within the display and touch section of settings, which has now finally been updated to match the design of the slider you use within the quick settings panel. Previously, this was actually full width and didn't actually match the style used elsewhere. Now it's indented marginally to make the experience a little bit more consistent and easier to grab and make changes without going backwards within the menus. When you are setting up a new eSIM or SIM from the settings panel, there is an initial splash screen. This has changed slightly to give more details on what happens when you're accessing this section. The updated message confirms that some device data may need to be sent to Google, your operator, or their respective partners. It also appears to load faster in our testing. So yeah, this is a new section. If you add in a SIM or an eSIM, you'll see this, you get a new splash message. So that's the UI changes out of the way. Let's get into some of these usability changes, as Google's latest Pixel update has a host of usability enhancements aimed at making that everyday device experience a little bit smoother and more intuitive. As I say, this section details those core changes and it may include some new functionalities. First up is contact storage options. Well, this allows you to change the Google account used to store your on-device contacts in the app section of settings within this version of Android 16. If you prefer to keep your contact data local though, you can choose the device only option so that cloud storage is not utilized. It allows you to just switch between this on the fly at any point. So yeah, make use of this if you do have lots of contacts stored across multiple accounts. While it's obvious that Google has wanted most people to switch to gestures and it is the default option nowadays, with Android 16 you can now get predictive back animations even when using the classic 3-button control method. A long press and hold or swipe up of that back button shows you where you'll end up, and I think this is good for cohesion, as predictive back is one of those features that really helps you navigate the UI and understand where you're going. The battery health metric has also been added in here in Android 16 for the first time widely. It's found in settings, battery, and it's now officially live for selected Pixel devices, including the Pixel 8 series and newer, with this stable release. This new section allows you to quickly check the status, estimated battery capacity based on that internal cell size of your device, plus provides troubleshooting advice if or when you encounter issues. When acting normally, you'll see a large green check mark on this screen, plus this icon can change if your phone's internal cell is showing signs of aging or other lifespan related issues, but we haven't seen these yet, as again, yeah, Pixel 8 is not quite old enough to show if there are problems with the battery. If you do happen to have the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, the Android 16 update has added a neat new feature that can check more accurately that the device itself is open or closed when using extra magnetic accessories. Think cases, that kind of thing. Obviously, these magnetic accessories can cause some interference if this toggle is not enabled in settings. So yeah, enable this, it will give you better options and it will tell you when the device is open or closed correctly once it's enabled. Finally, for one of the first times probably ever on Pixel devices, you can now assign the double tap power button gesture to either open the camera or the Google Wallet application with this Android 16 update. This actually mimics the way the double power button option presses or opens the default payment option on Apple devices, so it makes sense if you're someone who's switched over and you want to be able to do that. It also, as I say, is the first time Pixel owners have been able to change the power button quick gesture, but I do think this is a really nice option if you're someone who wants to use those on-screen buttons from the lock screen, the quick options for widgets to open the camera, and maybe want to use that power button to do something else. So the 80% charging limit was added in a previous QPR for Android 15, but this is getting tweaked here in Android 16 so that effectively what it will do is charge to 100% every 1 to 2 weeks to help you understand or at least get information on whether or not your phone is overcharging, what the battery health status and all that kind of stuff. It will be used for calibration purposes. It's also worth noting again that I don't think a lot of people know this, is that the 80% limit does not apply to your phone. So it won't charge to 80%, it'll charge to 100% if your Pixel is powered off before or during the charging process. So yeah, a couple of things there that I think are really important with that 80% charge limit in Android 16. And Google has also added an extra layer of security when altering or editing your biometric data here in Android 16, as you can now scan, or you need to scan your fingerprint to access the section where you're making changes to your biometric data. This extra step means that you should not have as many issues with someone being able to gain access to your device and maybe changing security settings just using a PIN or passcode. However, it is worth noting if they do have that, they will still be able to access lots of every device and lots of information stored upon it. Android 16 also has a great new feature that lets you reassign keyboard shortcuts to your own preferred key combinations, making physical keyboard navigation just a little bit more flexible. To access the keyboard shortcuts menu, go to Settings, system, keyboard, physical keyboard, and then you'll be able to view keyboard shortcuts if you have one attached or linked with your device. You can also access this through the floating Gboard toolbar or pressing the Meta Windows Command key and \. A customized button will appear on devices with screens larger than 600 dp like the Pixel Tablet or Pixel 9 Pro Fold when they're opened, and tapping it enters a fully customization mode that you can enable from here. You can assign new key combinations, which obviously will rely on that Meta, Windows or Command key combos, with a wide range of system actions including the ability to open up the apps list, going home, take screenshots, as well as add shortcuts to Calculator, Gmail, and Maps on top of that. To enhance the security on a device, there is a brand new advanced protection feature in Android 16 that lets you just access more security options with your Pixel phone with safeguards against things like online attacks, risky, harmful applications, sketchy websites, scam calls via call or text, and more on top of that. It does have to be enabled on your device by heading to Settings, Security and Privacy, and Advanced Protection, and when you enter this mode you may get a pop-up once it's installed on your device to enable this in the in-device settings, and you can make adjustments from here as you see fit. So piggybacking off the notification cooldown function, in Android 16 it will now force group notifications in the quick settings panel from the same application, for instance like Gmail or the system itself, in a bid to prevent information overload or too many notifications clogging up that section of your device. It's automatic, you can't turn this off. This is something you will notice right away if you do get lots of notifications from the same app. So that's the usability and UI changes out the way. Let's get into some of these less important but still kind of important UI and cosmetic updates. These are refinements designed to just better complement things like Material U, yet lay more groundwork for other changes for that Material 3 expressive redesign. But most of these changes, I will say, they won't drastically alter your daily usage, but I do think they'll just improve that aesthetic, something we've wanted to see Google do, and they have done over the past few years since the introduction of Material U and Dynamic Color. So one of the first you'll see right away after booting into this update is a brand new reboot glow when you actually see that home screen for the first time. It is a minor glow effect that just shows that your home screen is being prepared or loading in. The glow or wave shimmer actually looks identical to the animation, or if you've seen this before, it's the same one that's used on that system-wide media player in the quick settings media panel, if you're wondering where it came from. On top of that, in tandem with this reboot glow, you'll also briefly see animated abstract Material U shapes. They'll appear just before that home screen layout bumps into view on your phone. To coincide with the launch of the new OS update, the updated Android 16 SystemUI icon can also be found in the status bar and any system level notification pop-ups. I do think this icon doesn't quite match the baklava dessert codename this year. Instead, it's an abstract approximation of that, or at least an approximation of the sweet treat, using triangles to represent the pastry. Yeah, you'll see this across lots of areas of Android, including the status bar and the quick settings panel, when you plug into a computer, that kind of thing. On top of that, there is the updated Android 16 logo, which is found in settings. This sticks to that NASA style patch that we've come to know and love over the past few years, but I do think it also fuses in that baklava glyph into a sort of little planet with that bug droid spaceman orbiting this baklava planet. It's also a larger square this time around to actually, well, take up more of your screen, and it features Android and 16 quite prominently. Yeah, new icon, it's always nice to see, but we've seen this a lot already during the beta phase and now here in the stable release. So a minor change to Android 16 also means that certain icons now will be better adjusted to, I'd say, better fit the default circular icon aesthetic that we've come to know from Pixel. At least at launch, most of the applications that will change or you will notice changing are optional first-party apps from Google, like the arts and culture or even Notebook LM apps. The app icon now is inset within a white circle within these instances. I'm not so sure about what it looks like in terms of overall cohesion, but yeah, it's a change that we thought we'd note here in this video. Also, when checking the amount of system storage utilized on your device, you can now see how much space Android 16 is taking on your Pixel. This has just been updated, all in all but name, from the previous version, which you can see Android 15, now Android 16 in this release. Another minor change is when the dark theme is applied, or if you have a device with a wider color range in dynamic color theming, some deeper settings menu sections may have darker backgrounds. This isn't always the case, but it can be more visible in certain conditions, especially, as I say, if you do have specifically very, very dark themes and dynamic color system settings applied on your device. The split screen icon has also changed now to better show how apps will look when activating this within the recents menu. Just long press the icon, you'll see that, This icon is at least marginally more detailed than the previous version, which is a lot more abstract, and I do think it makes a lot more sense as it looks more like a phone with two applications running side by side or on top of one another. So with the Android 16 Easter egg, we've not seen a major change to the previous iteration, but this is just yet another play, or at least play on that previous version with a little added twist thrown in for good measure. When it's activated, when the Easter egg is activated, you can use an autopilot function now, which will trigger a live update notification that will track where that little bug droid spacefarer is in relation to the digital solar system that the Easter egg generates. The notification can be accessed from the lock screen or the quick settings panel. Closing the Easter egg or force stopping will make this disappear, but for all intents and purposes, this is basically the same Easter egg as last year with that added thing thrown on top. The search bar in the top of the settings menu is also now a little darker, likely to indicate or give it more extra prominence than it did in Android 15, but yeah, you can see that right at the top of your screen, and it is a little bit more obvious when you're using that dark theme if you're a dark theme fan and use it on your Pixel. Another very subtle change in Android 16 is to the status bar clock. You might not even notice it at first when you first bump into this, but it is marginally larger, and the text looks a little bit bolder and spaced out on bigger screens. There is a minor change here to make this more obvious, and it makes a lot of sense as screens are getting bigger and text in relation to that can sometimes look a little bit smaller. Some of the lock screen clocks that you can set in the wallpaper and style application now have very subtle dynamic color theming based upon your on-device wallpaper or lock screen wallpaper. I do think there aren't that many that do this, but in our experience, green or similar hues are the most visible. You can just about make it out in the image that you're seeing on screen now, but yeah, it's very subtle, it's a very nice touch, and it's nice to see dynamic color bleeding into even more spaces on your phone. And there is a new simple name change for the toggle in the SIM menu for allow 2G to 2G network protection. The toggle still does the same thing, allows you to access 2G networks if they're available in your region. That's it, that's all there is to it. And in the wallpaper and style application and display and text menus, both of these at the same time, the high contrast text option now has been changed to outline text. The explanation has also been updated to simplify and make it a little bit clearer just what this does on your phone screen without any jargon thrown in. You might notice when you enable Do Not Disturb mode and you open the quick settings panel fully, you'll see that there's a slightly adjusted message to confirm that notifications are paused by Do Not Disturb. The font itself is marginally bigger, slightly bolder when versus the active no notifications text is visible you can see here versus Android 15, but yeah, it's not a major change, but it is a change nonetheless that you might notice right away. The notification history pane also has some minor changes to better fit with those other sub-menu visuals that we've seen across Android 16 and Android 15 previously, including new alignment and separation for those specific notifications. When you scroll down as well, you'll notice that the icons are marginally clearer, while separated lines are technically removed before that, but you'll see smaller compact areas from Google notifications and the like later down the notification history panel. In some settings sub-app menus, you will see some thicker sliders or slider toggles for these, such as in the vibration and haptics menu. You will have more obvious colourful line guides in areas like sound and vibration as well, although there are visual differences between them. As I say, these can vary from menu to menu, but it does make it a little bit easier to ascertain what you can change and how much you can change it within those sub-menu sections. We know Google's been playing with that beta tag on the themed icon setting in wallpaper and style for a while. It's actually gone in the stable Android 16 release, but it still does the same thing. Whether or not it comes back or changes back to beta, we're not sure at this stage, but yeah, it's missing here in the stable release. So that's it. That's basically everything in this Android 16 update. So there's around about 30 major changes. As far as updates go, yeah, it's a very, very small one with very few major new additions or features to speak of. I don't think it's going to blow anybody away. And of course, there is a looming shadow of QPR1, which isn't really great for the optics of this first release, but we'd say, as I said at the start of this video, treat it like an appetizer before that main meal, which is going to arrive in a few months' time. It's not the most extensive. Again, we've seen refinements over time, but visually, we're going to see bigger updates later down the line. I want to ask you though, what do you think is the killer function? I think there are one or two that are really nice. I don't think they're particularly killer compared to previous updates, but let me know down in the comment sections below. As I say, I know there isn't a ton, but yeah, it is what it is. Cheers for watching though. Hopefully you've enjoyed this deep dive into Android 16, no matter how shallow it is. And yeah, I will speak to you later.